Alright guys, we are live. How's everybody doing? A lot of big news today. I wasn't going to stream today. I don't usually stream on Tuesdays. Just every time I looked at my phone, every time I had a break or anything today, I would look up and see something new and amazing and shocking happening in the UFC that I didn't expect. So I thought I better stream. So how's everybody doing? You seen I was streaming out of my car to let everybody know about the UFC deal. An incredible thing. I thought it was incredible. But I talked about this a while back, and I said I wanted this to happen, and I'm getting a lot of flack from a lot of people. I'm getting a lot, surprisingly, a lot of negative feedback from a lot of people, saying that it's not the best thing for the UFC. I'm going to challenge you wholeheartedly. What is? I had actually almost everyone that I talked to today put me on blast that knows UFC about how this was a bad thing. People got to understand, we need fans in the seats to keep this thing going. Ratings were down. They have been down. You guys know that. And I was talking about 3 months ago or so, I was saying that this is what needs to happen. That ESPN needs to come in, and that's really what the UFC needs to do, was come in and get ESPN and Disney on their side. And boom, here we go. You got Mighty Mouse and Mickey Mouse in one place. I mean, who'd have thought it after all the years? Who'd have thought in 1993, as we were talking to Art Davey about how the UFC started just last week. Started first minute and a half with a tooth being kicked out of a man's mouth over a crowd of would-be sponsors from Gold's Gym that we'd be signing with ESPN and Disney. I mean, it's freaking amazing. Then you got Nate Diaz versus George St. Pierre out of absolute nowhere. And that was purposeful. That was purposeful. That was hidden for reasons to protect Dana White's sanity. Because he's tired of shit leaking. It seems like lately. And he's actually really pissed at Ariel Helwani right now. And I believe it's... I believe he's legitimately pissed at him. Maybe not all the time, but I do believe there's some legitimate ire between the two, especially definitely on Dana's side, because he keeps saying things before Dana White can announce them, and Dana White's the CEO and president, so he had to really jump on this. And I don't know if there was already rumors flying around or what, but it really wasn't the main rumors, if there was, because there have been rumors of, Nick Diaz coming back. One of his opponents could have possibly been GSP. We didn't know what was going on with GSP. If he fought anybody under 185 coming back, even if he was going to come back, we figured it was probably going to be at 170 against either Tyron Woodley, to suppose prove who the best welterweight champion of all time was, or Conor McGregor, the money man. Well, the UFC is literally printing money today I think they're finally realizing what stars the Diaz brothers are. No, they don't. They don't have an entire country behind them like Ireland, but they have a very large area of the country behind them. I think it was just this year, very, very recently, even after Nate beat Conor, I don't think the UFC really noticed how big Conor was. Or, excuse me, how big the Diaz brothers were. You got Nate Diaz that hasn't fought in almost 2 years. You got Nick Diaz that hasn't fought in almost 3 years, since 2015. His fight against Anderson Silva. I believe it was July of 2015. And you got people that still care about him fighting. That's amazing. That's pretty much unprecedented for a guy that hasn't even been UFC champion. He was WEC and Strikeforce champions. But he wasn't he wasn't UFC champion. So I find that pretty incredible. And GSP, he was just dealing with diverticulitis. He was 185 pounds. You seen him against Michael Bisping. He was absolutely huge. And now Dana White's saying that that fight's going to happen at 155 pounds. Holy crap. Well, hello, Leslie. Thanks for tuning in. How you doing? Huge news. Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson and Mickey Mouse in the same house. It's craziness right now. UFC on ESPN. Of course, perfect timing. ESPN put out this new streaming service. They have the ESPN plus the ESPN Plus, and $4.99 a month. This is what a lot of people that just have Netflix have been asking for. They said, we're okay, these cord cutters, everything's good except for we're missing our sports. Well, ESPN, they got Monday Night Football, they got basketball, they got a lot of baseball and a lot of other things, but now they're going to have exclusive rights to the UFC. And they said live and on-demand rights. So UFC Fight Pass could be a thing in the past. I'm not sure. It could be part of ESPN now. I think that would be absolutely incredible. I can imagine what ESPN could do with that, what Disney could do with that. You got TV, movie productions. I don't think Fox ever used the UFC fighters in the ways that they could have. I don't think they did a bad job. I don't have bad feelings against Fox because they did bring them into a lot of their commercials. They brought them in, they brought on some good cards. And I'll hand it to them. They recently, it took a lot of nerve, a lot of balls really, to bring in very, very long cards of 10, 12 fights. They streamed, I think it was on Big Fox for like 5 or 6 straight hours in prime time. So I'm actually very thankful to them for that, for going through that. But now we're on the sports network. We're a sport. This is the legitimization finally. After 25 years, it's like, how long is this going to take before people accept this as a sport? And well, when you start to get to be the biggest sport in the world, then people start to respect you. Obviously, soccer, the biggest sport in the world. MMA, possibly the second. Even though it's dropping in the United States. Attendance and TV ratings per event are not doing as good as they've done at certain times in the past. They're not at the top. But there's way more events. So there's way more revenue. There's so many stars that there's no way Dana could have promoted these guys. You got 700 fighters in the UFC. And that's why they're starting to promote themselves. They're promoting themselves on Twitter. They're constantly going on talk shows and on podcasts like this one. I've had several fighters. I had a guy who's making a run at the 205 belt right now, Smiling Sam Alvey. Great guy. We've had Kyle the Monster Nelson. He's trying to break through into the UFC, #1 featherweight in Canada. He's trying to break through, but the UFC, they don't have any resources to market him once he gets in. So he's building everything before he gets in there, and he's going to be just fine as far as that's concerned. Kyle the Monster Nelson, guy is an absolute marketing guru. He works his ass off on every facet of the game. But luckily for him, unlike a lot of fighters, he has the benefit of being able to concentrate full-time on fighting. He was telling me, you can tell because when you ask him how long he slept, I was telling him I think a lot of fighters don't get enough sleep. And we had him on here last week for MMA Live, Thursday MMA Live at 5, and he said he gets 9 to 11 hours a day. Must be nice, right? Except for during training camp. What's up, Bruce the Lion? Congratulations, sir. We got a lion in the house. Congratulations on your win over Charles Felony. It was beautiful, my friend. Absolutely beautiful. Talking about somebody that works their ass off from dusk till dawn. This is a guy knocking on the door, hopefully, of Bellator and the UFC. Well, thank you, man. Hey, while you're here, do you got a fight announced coming up yet? I know it hasn't been too long. Yeah, so, these guys have to promote themselves. Like I was saying, 700 fighters in Dana White. Bruce he's promoting himself. He's all over Instagram. He's on Facebook. He's posting pictures. Pro boxing. You're pro boxing next month? You're an animal, dude. You're a frickin' animal. Where can we watch you? This guy never rests. I was talking to Kyle the Monster Nelson. Bruce, last week he was on the show. He helped me host Thursday MMA Live at 5. And I asked him how much sleep he gets a night. Because I told him I think that a lot of fighters probably need to get more sleep. Says he gets 9 to 11 hours a day, and you probably just heard that, I'm sorry. And then he gets an extra 2 hours, he said, in between two-a-days. So 11 to 13 hours during training camp. But good for him, his body needs it. These guys' bodies need it. But like I say, Dana White doesn't have time to promote 700 people. He definitely doesn't have time to promote these guys coming up. So I think this Disney deal is going to be a huge benefit. Greg Morales, that's a trip. I was just watching those highlights. Effing Crazy Horse. Fuck Crazy Horse. Yeah, you gained a big following with this crowd, Bruce. And I don't want to get a whole lot into that other gentleman, unless you do. I wish I run off of about 4 hours a day.
Gentlemen, that's a loose term.
I hear you, man. I hear 4 hours a day. That's rough. Yeah, I try to get 6, and I thought I was doing good at 6. But at 4, that's not enough. But hard work pays off, and it's definitely paying off for you. We were talking about the ESPN Disney deal, of course, that the UFC just signed. The Fox deal was over. And I said on the show, I thought that the UFC should try to sign with ESPN Disney. We got this standalone $4.99 a month, just ESPN access programming. So now people can get all their Monday Night Football. They can get some basketball, some baseball, and they get UFC. And what the UFC said, and what Dana White said, and what ESPN said, was that it was going to be live, live, on-demand, and social marketing programming. So I'm thinking it could kind of be the end of Fight Pass. A lot of that on-demand stuff's definitely going to be on ESPN. And I'm really curious to see how ESPN integrates that on-demand into their show. Because that's got to be... What's up, RS? What's going on, man? I seen you on here earlier. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. So, while you're here, RS, like I said, there's some big news. A lot of big news. You can see right there, and I saved one of them. You got UFC on ESPN, just signed with ESPN and Disney. Nate Diaz versus George St. Pierre, which I didn't see coming at all. And then, out of nowhere, nobody really knew this was going on. Ronda Rousey's having Conor McGregor's baby. I'm watching the lines all day, and everything just keeps coming through. Just more and more news. We'll get to that more in a minute. I think the UFC is going to benefit big time from ESPN. My buddy, CEO of W1 MMA, former CEO of W1 MMA, the biggest promotion in Canada. Bruce might have known about it, might have known some people that fought in it. My friend Ian Brewster, though, and we talked for a while back and forth. And he wants to come on the show and talk to me about it and argue this. He doesn't like this deal. He thinks that it's going to be too commercialized. We're going to see more of this Conor McGregor stuff. I want to argue with him on that. But I'd like to hear what his points are. He's a very smart guy. He's got his nose to the ground when it comes to the MMA world. He knows everybody. I mean, he knows everybody. Like, I know Art Davie, the founder of the UFC now, but, like, he's known him for years. He knows him personally. He's had dinner with him. Things like that. So I'd like to see why he feels that way. And I can see them wanting to bring some of their ESPN commentators in. I hope that's not the case to a certain point. But for those people that have just Netflix right now, $5 more a month, you can get this. You can just go to ESPN.com. You can download the app on iOS, on Android. You can get it on Roku. $4.99 ESPN or ESPN Plus. Or if you already have ESPN, if you have DirecTV Now, or if you have this old school cable or satellite still. You can watch it on any of those, and I hope the on-demand is stellar. Not a lot of people paying the $10 for the UFC Fight Pass. I didn't think so. It's about 460,000 people a month pay $10 a month. I didn't think that was a very big number, and I actually told Art Davie that, who's working with the UFC right now. I said that's not big enough, but he said, he thought it was a lot. He's like, hey, that's a lot of money coming in. That's, $4 million and something coming in every month. It's second to pay-per-view revenue. I think it's actually probably third, second to pay-per-view revenue, and or third to pay-per-view revenue, second to television revenue. But I see RS's comment here. Ronda Rousey is having a baby from Conor. This is a hoax, and something for sure. What's that, Conor Ronda Rousey? Can you please explain? RS. Is all I have to say about that is, what's the use of the truth if you can't tell a lie sometimes? No, Ronda Rousey is not having Conor McGregor's baby. But at this point, I wouldn't be surprised with all the news coming out. To me, that's almost as surprising as seeing Nate Diaz fighting GSP, especially at 155 pounds. I don't know if I got anybody on that one. But if I'd have seen it, I'd have probably believed it myself. So, but Yeah, I think there's chances now, though. You're going to see Stipe Miocic on the Disney Channel. Hopefully, you don't see too many Disney people invading the UFC. But they are going to have a lot of all original programming. They said it's going to be a lot of all access, kind of like what Fox Sports does right now. More of it. 15 standalone events next year, and they said minimum of 12 fights per event. So my guess is that means they're going to have like a 2 or 3 hour card, and then they're going to have the prelims on like ESPN.com or just on the ESPN Plus digital part of the channel, and not on ESPN cable. I guess the UFC has more exposure now. Absolutely. The champ is here. What's up, Stewie? But RS didn't think, were you one of the ones you didn't think this was a good thing? A lot of people don't think that it's a good thing. Dean actually hit me up earlier. He says, the way I see it is the biggest country and company in the country, one of them, just bought over the UFC. I think there's a lot of benefits to that, though. And ratings have been dropping. We know that. Bellator, Bellator's much worse. And I realize that. And I wish they'd go up too, because I like watching Bellator. And they're coming off a great card, though, of course, and they got another great card coming up. And I hope that lives up to it in every facet. I really do. I think that's going to be absolutely sensational. And the competition, UFC having competition is absolutely sensational and necessary. But we got a lot of stuff coming up on here. A lot of fight companions coming up. So, and I got an interesting email today with some contact information. You guys, RS says, have you seen the new Karate Kid show? It's called Cobra Kai. It's freaking awesome. It's with the original actor, but now they are old. I want to watch it. My entire family is like extremely busy, and we can't ever get anyone here at one time to watch things. So I'm trying to get everybody together so I can watch it together with my kids. I got a 16 and a 17-year-old. Going to be almost 18 in December. Shit, that makes me feel old. And my wife was a big Karate Kid fan. So the original actors... What's that? Oh, she says she wants to marry him. He's getting pretty old now.
Machio. He's still just the same age, number of years older as when I was 12.
Huh. What's his name?
Ralph Macchio.
Ralph Macchio. I don't know why I can't remember that. He looks good. She's saying he looks the same as he did, way back in the day. And
he was like 5 years older than me then.
Whatever he's doing, I need to start doing. RS says it's better than the movies. I've seen all 10 episodes now. Can't wait for season 2. I'm definitely going to want to watch it. The first 2 episodes are free on YouTube, I believe, RS, and the other 8 are on YouTube Red. And then YouTube Red, you can do 30 days free trial. A lot of these things you can do 30 days free trial. So, I recommend you guys do that when there's an HBO fight, a Showfighter time fight, if you want to follow along. It works out great. I did it for Showtime to begin with. Now I pay for Showtime just because, I do this. And I already had HBO as part of my DirecTV Now clause. And not to sound like a commercial, but I'm trying to get you guys as many fights as possible for cheap and entertainment. DirecTV Now, I've said before, if you have AT&T, make sure you have DirecTV Now, because they'll give it to you for $10 a month. For anybody who doesn't, they're doing $10 a month for the first 3 months, even if you're not on AT&T, but then it goes to $35 a month. If you're on AT&T and you have any time at all, I can't see not getting it. I generally just end up watching fights on there because I don't have enough time to sit and watch a whole lot else. I've watched a few other things on there, but it's completely worth it for $10 a month. It's like, come on. What are you paying for cable? A shit ton. We got a lot of boxing and MMA coming up this month. We got Vasil Lomachenko. I can't wait to see that guy. I love to watch that guy fight. And so much stuff. They're putting too much of the stuff all on the same day. That's the only issue I'm coming up with a lot of times. Gary Russell's coming. Gary Russell is going to be fighting on Showtime versus Joseph Diaz on May 19th. I just seen that. I didn't even know that until a little while ago. Now that I think about it, I think Cap might have said something. But and I got one question for you guys real quick as we're going on. Ryan Bader is coming up. That's the most important fight. We're going to go through all that. I'm going to go through the entire streaming schedule for this month. I got one question, and you guys just give your feedback as we continue to go on, each of you individually. My thought was that I think MMA Live at 5 is possibly too early. A lot of you guys, especially if you're on the West Coast like I am, a lot of people aren't home yet. 5 p.m., I think the ratings on it have been down. I think 5 p.m. might be too early. If I was to bump that up to 7 p.m., like this show right here, let me know how many more of you would be able to tune in or tune in for longer. I'm just curious. Stewie, how is Dutch guy doing? I was getting a Dutch guy. Dutch guy is doing much better. I've emailed him back and forth. He's not out of the woods yet. I hadn't gotten an email from him for a couple days, and I was a little worried. He said, "Don't worry." Don't worry about me emailing me every day. But he said it's still very much a struggle to even do an email. But they said that he's progressing much, much faster than they thought he was, and that he would. Of course, they didn't think he was going to make it a couple weeks ago. They thought he was going to die. He's a modern miracle after a horrific car accident. And obviously now he is going to make it. He's got 7 broken ribs. Those are going to have to heal. He's got broken fingers. He's got a dislocated shoulder. He had a broken arm, I believe. I could read all the stuff from the email. It's bothering me that he's not back yet. But I know it's going to be a while. Says my situation is slowly improving. 7 broken ribs, broken shoulder, broken wrist, and fingers are hurting me like hell. But hey, I am still in there. Please stay in touch. And then he had emailed me after that. I don't know. Because he's got 2 different emails here for whatever reason. But thanks for your concern. And anybody who can put messages on his old videos and comment to him, I know he'll really appreciate it. It gives him a boost, because I know from this email, this is what he emailed me 2 days ago. It says, thanks for your concern, Mike. Really gives me a boost when people care. Last few days were pretty rough because the internal trauma is slowly healing. My broken shoulder and 7 ribs and fractured elbow now starting to hurt. I had a lot of scans past a few days. I can't imagine that starting to hurt. All good news. Doctors say I am way ahead in recovering at this point. I sleep a lot to deal with the pain, so don't worry. Well, I'm glad he's sleeping because his body needs to heal. This has also cost me a lot of energy to even type. So I can imagine with the broken fingers and shoulder and everything, it's got to be hard. He needs to get like some kind of text-to-speech or somebody to help him with that. He's injured pretty much everywhere, RS. Like I said, he's got the dislocated shoulder. He's got broken fingers, broken ribs. He also had I can't remember. What was that, honey? A puncture? Do you remember?
Colon.
He has a punctured colon. Punctured lung and a punctured colon. So, you know, our thoughts and prayers are with him. And I hope he gets back here soon. I know he wants to come on the show. He wanted to come this last Saturday. He wanted to Skype it in, and it was just too early. So thanks for asking, Stewie. Tim says, hey, Mike, what's this Diaz versus GSP? Is that happening again or something? So Dana White came out on Unfiltered and said, we are absolutely working on GSP versus Nate Diaz. We want it on UFC 227 in August. And the crazy thing that I thought was that they want it at 155. And I know I keep on hearing these rumors about Nate Diaz come back, and I keep on being disappointed. But this one, Dana came out with it. He didn't have to ask about it. He came out with it, and he said, yes, this is what we want to do. They wanted to do it on UFC 227. This is going to be a blockbuster card. Knock on wood that there's no injuries or any weird things. You would have Nate Diaz and George St. Pierre as the co-main event, which I'm guessing that means they're probably going to give him a 5-round fight, even though it's not a championship fight. Then you got Corey Gambrandt versus TJ Dillashaw. Dillashaw defending his belt, Gambrandt having every chance in the world to take it away from him. Then you got the fight made. He says Luke Rockhold and Alexander Gustafsson are absolutely going to fight. It's not going to be an interim belt at this time, but we know Daniel Cormier said he only wants to fight till he's 40. He's 39. If he comes back, he's got maybe one fight left in him at light heavyweight. So that is kind of almost for the light heavyweight championship in my mind. Unless John Jones, when he comes back, decides he wants to fight light heavyweight, and I just don't think that's a challenge to him anymore. Honestly, but what an incredible card. Also, Derek Brunson on that card. He called out the 4 fights that he would like to have if, you know, everything went according to plan. And it's an incredible freaking card. Thank you, Stewie. So he gets better soon. R.I.P. Nate Diaz, says Bomber Friends. I'm not under any illusion with this match. I realize Nate Diaz is an incredible underdog. I'm also very, very surprised, though, that they think GSP can make 155 pounds. He looked like an absolute monster against Michael Bisping not that long ago. It was less than a year ago. He was 185 pounds. He looked like George Super Saiyan Pierre. That's what he freaking looked like. I mean, he was so muscular. He was so muscular, he actually started gassing. And it was lucky for him, actually, that he was able to take Bisping out so quick. I mean, but he was just so fast, so strong. Yes, RS. Thank you. Over 2,000 subs now. And I don't know if 7's in here right now. I don't think 7's in here. But 7 actually sat with me. Saturday, I streamed after the boxing match. I ended up streaming the Japanese card. Ryzen. For about 7 hours. I streamed for 9 hours Saturday. I was up until 6 a.m. Japanese people are crazy. I can't understand everything they say. Obviously, I was trying to go onto the Google Translate, get a little bit of an issue of what was going on there. But, man, they stuck on there for a long time. Ryzen was a success, though. Ryzen, that was a very, very fun card. It didn't start till 10 p.m. this time. I didn't realize it was going to run over 6 hours. So that was, yep, Stewie was there. Thank you, Stewie. DFAB, thanks for the Ryzen stream, by the way. You're welcome, DFAB. That's where we got a lot of new members. We were only at like 1910, and now we're well over 2,100. So very successful. The reason that is down, actually, the Ryzen stream, you'll see it. It is not in. Ian McCall fought against a guy I can't remember. Sorry. Darren Cruikshank fought. Had a beautiful head kick knockout. Uncle Creepy Ian McCall got waxed with a left hook early in his fight. A lot of the other fighters I wasn't real familiar with because they're big Japanese stars, but great fights. I mean, a lot of super entertaining fights. They had kickboxing fights. They had MMA fights. Kyoshi Cat, was that the guy that was like 49-0 or something like that? They have this guy over there that's 19 years old, and he's like 49-0 in kickboxing. He wants to be the first guy to be a kickboxing, boxing, and MMA world champion all at the same time. Kyoji Hiragachi fought Mighty Mouse also. Yeah, that's right. They were talking about that. Frank Trigg, and I can't remember who the other guy was at commentating. They did a pretty good job for the most part. The one from the last second armbar. Yep, exactly. Yeah, I remember that. But yeah, it was a crazy night, and I got that Pride feeling back. They got the Pride lady that used to yell the names out and everything. They have the light shows. They have the music back. It felt like we were back in Pride, and we seen head kicks. I got to see head kicks to downed opponents, knees. Why that excites me, that's kind of sick. But I did get to see, we got to see it. It was kind of like nostalgic. One of the guys, the Japanese guys, he jumped up in the air and landed on his opponent on the ground. I mean, it was a lot of fun. And I'll tell you, I'll try to get that stream back up, or parts of it. The actual issue that the stream went off, I actually streamed the event itself. Head kicks, they should bring them back. Oh yeah, head kicks on the ground. No, but I actually streamed the actual event, which Ryzen doesn't have a big issue with. Their copyright laws are very loose compared to the United States. Why the video got taken down was there was 2 songs that Americans came out, 2 fight songs that the Japanese had chosen for them, and those songs played on my YouTube channel, and I hadn't even thought about the songs. And I wake up in the morning. By the way, I had 250,000 minutes watched, like 25,000 views. Japanese people just going crazy. And the reason it's been pulled right now is for the 2 American songs that broadcast on there for like a minute or 2 while these guys were coming to the cage. So, to the ring actually. And I forgot how cool it is to watch MMA in a ring. Absolutely spectacular. And I actually think MMA should be in a ring after watching that. There was no issues really with people going through the ropes, getting onto the ropes. They didn't even really have to reposition the fighters in a lot of ways, like they did back in the day. You'd see them drag them to the exact spot. No, they have people on the outside as fighters' arms and everything are starting to come out of the ring. They push them back, but that actually surprisingly worked out very well. If you do want to watch the next one, I'm definitely going to try to do it. It's going to be at some ridiculous time, so I'll let you know, and we'll all try to get some sleep, because it might be up till 6 a.m. or later, depending on your time zone. Best thing about the ring is watching guys flying through the ropes. There was none of that this time, though, and they did, like I said, they did a really good job. The ropes seemed tighter than back in the day. They were very tight, not loose. They had good binding agents on the ropes, and they had people standing on the outside to push up against the ropes to make sure that they didn't fly out. That is entertaining, RS. I don't want to see, that's not the way I want to see fighters get hurt, though. Not that I want to see them get hurt at all, but this is the sport we live in, and one of the things I want to bring up, though, and, you know, really give some kudos to the UFC. In talking to Art Davie, he had to go against all these legislators talking about how dangerous UFC and MMA is, how it, you know, human cockfighting, the whole damn 9 yards. We're 25 years in, we have still not had a major injury, no deaths, double-digit deaths in every single sport besides that in that amount of time, including high school wrestling, and then you want to break down football as just the NFL, double-digit deaths. Baseball, basketball, I don't know if it's double digits, but they've had several, you know, major injuries and some deaths. Luckily, nothing in the UFC yet. I mean, eventually it's going to happen, even if it's some kind of, you know, freak heart attack or something, like they almost had in Bellator between two people that weren't in shape to fight. And nothing again. God rest Kimbo. We didn't realize the heart condition he was dealing with at the time. So, Dada 5000 just was not in shape whatsoever. And ESPN Plus, I'm going to let you know that ESPN Plus I was talking about, which is going to be a digital component of the ESPN package, $4.99 a month, a great deal. They already, starting May 26, have a standalone boxing event. So I'm happy about that. There's so much boxing on in May, though. So much boxing, so much MMA, too much to cover. There's a Glory Kickboxing that I don't even think I'll hit right now. We might end up doing it, but there's so much stuff to go through right now. It's absolutely insane. I'm going through this page I was looking at earlier on boxing for May. And yeah, like I said, it's nuts. There have been deaths in MMA. Yes, there have been deaths in MMA. There haven't been in the UFC, luckily. So that's why I say against the NFL. I really shouldn't have said high school wrestling, because that's really not a fair comparison. There was that death in MMA, Conor McGregor's friend in Ireland. Unfortunately, yeah, Portuguese died in Ireland last year. You're right. Conor McGregor took that very hard, actually, and that, you know, that may have been part of what's made him go on this tangent and why he's been so out of it. Baylor says, just join in. You guys talking about Yair versus Zabit at UFC 227 yet? No, that's a great matchup, but we're going to get to UFC 227 for sure. RS says that's a long ways down the road. Ryan Bader is what's trending now, Baylor. We are getting into UFC 199. Yes, UFC 199 is absolutely solid. Absolutely solid. Don't forget May 27th. Also, finally going to have Thompson versus Till. That's Stephen Thompson versus Darren Till. Obviously an incredible fight. I don't know if that fight's going to be as exciting as a lot of people are hoping, but I'll find it exciting. Expect to see a lot of counter punchers, a lot of countering. It might look a lot like the first Roy Jones Jr. versus Antonio Tarver fight, where they were both counter punchers and they were both kind of waiting for each other's lead, and they ended up kind of standing there a little bit. But Yair's manager tweeted out that Yair versus Zabit hasn't been officially booked. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I hadn't seen it on the site. Well, neither is GSP versus Diaz. It's not official, but Dana White was confident enough to come out and say that we're finalizing the deal. So he must have just came in to GSP and Nate Diaz and said, here's a freaking boatload of money. And they would have to offer GSP a lot of money to fight at 155. He's way off from 155. Honestly, I'm going to break through everything here in a minute, guys. So I'm not ignoring your comments, but kind of for a second I am. But yeah, Bellator. I'm so glad that Bellator's got the huge fights coming on. But May looks to be one of our best months in a very, very long time. And June starts out with fireworks as well. I'll just go through that real quick. The June card starts out FS1, Jimmy Rivera, number 4, versus Marlon Moraes, which is an incredible fight. That way I don't have to come back to this one. You got Gregor Gillespie versus Vink Piquel. One of my favorite fighters, though. You got Walter Harris, the big ticket. He's 10-7, but he's got 100% knockouts. The guy is one of the funnest guys to watch in MMA. Definitely the heavyweight division. He's fighting Daniel Spitz, 6-1, guy who's finished 88% of his own fights. Then you got Jake Ellenberger versus Killer B. Saunders, and I can't wait to see Killer B hit his stride in the UFC, and I think it's going to happen. He was so good in Bellator. It was amazing. We got Julio Arce versus Daniel Tamor. These are all big fights for an FS1 card, but June 1st we got my friend, my buddy, our colleague. He's been on here, and I'm going to have him interview again, probably before and after. Sam Alvey's got that fight against Gian Vellante. He asked for it on the show. He asked for it before. He said, you know, we're both funny guys. We both like each other. I want to fight Giante Vellante. And I think that's a great fight. 75% finish rate for Vellante, 63% knockouts, 13% subs. Sam Alvey, just a nut, and I think he's got more power at 205. He's got 59% knockouts, 9 subs. Finished, 69% of his fights, I think, against better competition, though, including that big victory over Rashad Evans. That was huge. Yep, Czech Congo fighting too. We're going to get into that. Aaron Pico has some heavy hands. He is still young, and his ground needs improvement, but the kid's power, oh my God. They are bringing along Dylan Danis. They're bringing him along really slowly, and some other people in Bellator. Bellator always brings people around slowly. They are not bringing Aaron Pico around so slowly as they have guys in the past. They put him in there against tough guys right out of the gate. So I thought that was absolutely incredible. Obviously, he lost his first fight. I thought he might lose his second. Zoltan says, was there a matchup for GSP or Diaz you would have been more into buying pay-per-view for? Oh, a matchup for? Oh, you mean other than GS? Oh, or was that the best? I think that's a great fight. I don't know that it's the best. It's very entertaining. I can't wait for the pre-fight, the post-fight, and the fight itself. Both those guys are entertaining. I know GSP took Nick down quite a bit, but Nick has a very active guard. He's got great wrist control technique. Nate definitely does. George St. Pierre is a little older. He's facing a huge weight drop. I think he's got a real chance at this. RSS, isn't Sam Alvey the guy that fights only his friends? Yes, he is, and he has friends with Gian Vellante. And I love that guy, and he said he was going to be on the show again, and we will have him on the show. So I hope you guys enjoyed him the first time, and I hope you enjoy him the second time. Because he reached out to me. He said, hey, I can't wait to see you for the next one. So I'm definitely happy about that, and definitely going to have him on. Obviously, you can't. Anytime a guy's in the UFC, you can't turn that down. We're really working towards this Bellator card here, and this one's absolutely freaking amazing. But I'm gonna start breaking through the schedule here of everything going on. Well, it's Comedic Genius. Isn't Sam Alvey the guy that fights all his friends? Oh, sorry. Winner of GSP Diaz fighter fights winner of Conor Khabib, assuming Conor fights again. I'm not holding my breath on Conor. He's one. I don't know why he pisses me off so bad with his inactivity, but it just does. More than the bus incident. Before the bus incident, I was already so pissed at him. I was ready to write him off. Genius says Shirk versus CM Punk, UFC Disney, make it happen. You talking about Sean Shirk from back in the day? I don't think he's fighting anymore. But CM Punk's got to get past Mike Jackson, which I think he will. I think he wins this one this time. But we got a huge schedule for boxing and MMA coming up. Of course, coming up here real quick, I got 2 freaking pages to read. May 12th, this Saturday, we got Vasil Lomachenko versus Jorge Linares. Then we got Bellator 199. We're going to get into it here. RS's boyfriend here, Ryan Bader versus King Mo. And I am putting a check mark next to Ryan Bader because I do think he's going to win that. Shrek. Oh, my God. I got you now. It says Shirk, so I was thinking like Sean Shirk. Shrek. Gotcha. But we got Ryan Bader versus King Mo. Paul Daly versus John Fitch in the undercard. Which, speaking of Paul Daly, apparently he has very severed ties with Bellator right now. They are not getting along well at all. And I don't know if Dana would invite him back to the UFC. He gave him a lifetime ban. I think he's worth another shot. It kind of depends on what issues he's giving Bellator with. Nate Diaz is not even a top 5 guy. I agree with URS. I understand that. I still think it's an entertaining fight. I'm not upset about the fight. And GSP isn't champion. That's my thing. Is GSP's not champion. He doesn't have to fight top 5 guys. You don't have a belt. You can fight some of these guys. You can fight some of the fun fights. Like Vanderlei Silva towards the end of his career. I know, GSP is kind of getting towards the end of his career. But Vanderlei fought some of those fun fights. He fought Chris Lieben. He fought, of course, the Chuck fight, was a big fight. And then he fought, who's the commentator, the big military guy? I can't think of his name right now. They had an absolutely freaking epic war. And I had his name on my mind, and it completely slipped. Brian Stan. Thank you, Comedic Genius. I knew somebody would be quick. Moana versus Elsa interim belt. Oh my God! And that is the issue that some people have. I've been lambasted by friends all day because I said this was a good thing, and I have people, especially people who are deep into the UFC community. What's up, Mike D? Thanks for tuning in, man. Yeah, Brian Stan. Good call. Have said we're going to see more of the Conor McGregor crap. We're going to see, a lot more fluff. They're afraid it's going to turn into the WWE. You got to remember, ESPN is a real sports league, and there's a reason they didn't want the UFC in there for a very long time. They said it was too violent. They certainly, I don't think, want Conor McGregor on there dropping the F-bomb, 50 times in 5 minutes. And they got Disney. So they got kids. If anything, I think it might clean the sport up a little bit, honestly. RS says, yeah, that's the thing. If GSP chooses to fight Nate, an average guy, instead of fighting Khabib, a legend in the making, he's going to lose a fan in me. Well, if he goes down to 155, you thought we had a murderer's row at 155 before, though. Now, you got GSP in the mix. You got Khabib, you got Tony Ferguson, you got Kevin Lee, you got Dustin Poirier, you still got Justin Gaethje out there. Then, of course, you got Khabib, you get Conor, and you get GSP in there. And, you pretty much have a mirror image of what boxing was. That those middleweights in the 1980s. You had Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, Thomas Hearns, Roberto Duran, and there was some other ones in there. So giant 155-pound division at that point. Pete says if GSP underestimate Nate, he can get knocked out. It's a possibility. I don't think he's got to worry so much about being knocked out is submissions. And that's one of the things I want to bring up, Peter, is the submission game lately has been evolving so much. It's evolved so much since Nate fought GSP. And GSP's training with those guys all the time. So don't get me wrong. It's not like GSP doesn't have great jits. Because he does, even though if he doesn't submit people. His jiu-jitsu defense is literally probably one of the best ever. But these guys, you watch that last Bellator card. It was all submissions except for the main event. These guys are using that rubber guard in a way that they used to not before, isolating the body. And now that we got the leg locks and ankle locks are being used again, these guys are getting really, really good at it. And you're seeing a ton of leg locks and ankle locks. It's a huge evolution in a sport that's 25 years old. We're seeing more leg kicks and more ankle locks and knee bars. Comedic says, but I also remember Mikey Disney as super social justice. Oh, jeez, let's not get political. Same as with Cormier or Stipe fighting Lesnar. I don't want to see that. I want to see the best against the best. I want to see the best against the best, RS, and that hardcore fan that grew up that was watching Thai boxing, in 91, renting it on VHS tapes when I was 12 years old. I want to see the best versus the best too, but I also like to see fun, entertaining fights. Absolutely, Mike D. Nate Diaz isn't knocking anybody out. He doesn't have the power, but he's definitely got the jits. Beowulf says, ironically, all Bellator heavyweights have been eliminated from the tournament. Yeah, Fedor is a heavyweight, and so is Matt Mitrione. So, not even close. I think there might be a few more. Frank Mir's been eliminated, but Rampage was eliminated. He was not a heavyweight. He had fought as a 205er. Roy Nelson, of course, was eliminated against Matt. One of them had to go. What was the other fight? This Grand Prix was so boring until this last week. I was so happy to see that Fedor versus Mir fight. Thanks for the support there, Stewie. Beowulf says, shit, never mind. You're Hey, I misspeak all the time, and I actually do a little bit of studying for this thing. But RS says, Danaher Death Squad is coming. Gary Tonin, a master in leg locks, just had his MMA debut. Oh my God, yeah, these guys are... This leg lock game is no joke, and it scares the shit out of me. Sometimes I can barely watch because I think about like the cartilage in my knee tearing or something. It's just different. Maybe part of it's because I did judo and I dealt with arm bars and chokes, but you can deal with an arm bar. As we've seen recently, you can have your elbow hyperextended and still come back from it, especially the women who are more flexible. And then you had like John Jones against Vitor Belfort, who a lot of people would have tapped. Vitor Belfort, I believe, dislocated his shoulder, and John Jones was able to keep fighting. That doesn't happen with a leg lock, a knee bar, or an ankle lock. Comedic Genius, I'm a Dylan fan in Covington. All right, Genius. Genius is trolling us all. I know you're not. You don't want me to bounce you. No, just kidding. King Mo and Bader. That's going to be a great fight. I think King Mo was past his prime, though, actually. Ryan Bader is the dark horse in this thing. Ryan Bader could absolutely win this. I'm not even quite sure he's the dark horse anymore after Matt Mitrione didn't look great against Roy Nelson. I've said, I know you guys are probably getting sick of me hearing it, but you have to have a plan when you have these Grand Prix. You have to have a plan, and you have to have an idea of who's good and who you want to see go further in the tournament. And in my mind, in a lot of people's minds, Matt Mitrione and Roy Nelson were the #1 seeds. Plus, there's that drama of the rematch. And then you have the number 1 seed and number 2 fight each other in the first round. This doesn't make sense. RS says, you break a guy's arm and he can still fight. You break a guy's leg and he can't get up. In terms of self-defense, leg locks are more effective than arm bars and Kimura. Mike on the masturbator stuff, welcome to the dark side. Yeah, absolutely. Ryan Bader, like I said, he could win that. He might be, he might be the favorite to win this, honestly. This could go a couple different ways. Fedor looks rejuvenated. Obviously, the drug testing is, not what it is in the UFC. There is some there in Bellator. Michael Chandler was just on Joe Rogan talking a little bit about some of the things that they do, and Joe Rogan was talking about how they do it, but not to the point of the UFC, definitely. Are there 2 Stewies in here, Stewie? Because you're like really nice to me, and then you call me names, or do you just have a split personality? RS says, yeah, I'm loving the words coming put out of your mouth. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, but yeah, Ryan Bader versus King Mo. Then you got Paul Daly versus John Fitch, which I was just thinking about, talking about. You got Aaron Pico versus Lee Morrison. You got Czech Congo coming back versus Javi Ayala. This is on the same night as Vasil Lomachenko versus Jorge Linares. You guys can follow that on ESPN. Comedic Genius says, oh my God, that episode was horrible. I'm not sure which episode you're talking about, but yeah. But yeah, that's a huge card. And then a week later, you got UFC Fight Night Chile. Really, the only fight I'm interested in that is Damian Maia against Kamaru Usman, and Usman is he can be a boring fighter, and so can Damian Maia, so I'm not even exactly sure how excited. Oh, Michael Chandler. I'm only halfway through the podcast right now. I did like the mental things that he said. I was listening to about how we beat ourselves up mentally and we don't remember our victories. That's one of the reasons I'm going to start taking notes when I'm doing my podcasts, when I'm doing my live streams and fight companions. Because I want to remember not just the things that I did bad, but the things that I did good, so I can try to do them again. Yeah, like I said, I'm not even quite halfway through the Michael Chandler one, comedic. I don't watch any of them on YouTube. I listen to them on the way to work because I listen to just about every Joe Rogan podcast. RS says, Crow Cop versus Roy Nelson. Who you got? It would be great if Crow Cop versus Fedor was the Bellator final, the biggest rematch ever. I do have Crow Cop in that one. He looks rejuvenated lately. Roy Nelson, he's getting older. I know they're around the same age, but he looked old against Matt Mitrione. He did look better towards the end of the fight. I just think people are starting to solve the puzzle of Roy Nelson. And I'm glad he remembered that he could wrestle towards the end there at Matt Mitrione. Mitrione was kind of embarrassing him. He was outboxing him. His footwork was better. And all of a sudden, Roy Nelson is like, hey, I usually knock people out, but you know what? I can take people down. So if he decides to take Fedor down, you know, maybe, or excuse me, Crow Cop down, maybe that's a good thing. But yeah, I would take Crow Cop, and I imagine somebody's going to get injured. I would be surprised if someone as old as these guys are doesn't get injured and isn't able to go on. And I think if Chael Sonnen somehow gets past Fedor, I think that he's going to be too beat up to go on. That's just my prediction right now. Community Gene says, we get it. Mental visualization. RS, yeah, MMA fighters are turning into psychics nowadays. I would rather listen to a toenail fungus expert. I'm into that mental stuff a lot. I understand a lot. Most people aren't. Yeah, I don't get why Nelson doesn't use his grappling more versus strikers. I know he talked about his wrestling and his jits, and he used to use it a lot. And then he said later in his career, actually, or when he was in, and now I'm going to forget something else. The one where they had the team fighting. I can't think of it. When he was in there, he realized that he had a big right hand. He could knock people out. And his words were actually, this is pretty fun. So I'm going to keep doing this. So he really liked it and really started becoming a knockout artist. Obviously put a lot of people out. But yeah, Zoltan, he definitely needs to mix it up. Give people different looks. Everybody knows the right hand's coming. Give him something else to look at. He's worked some leg kicks. But if you got to worry about those takedowns all the time, that's a much bigger story, in my mind. May 17th, ESPN's already got, they got Romero Dunno versus Gilberto Gonzalez. That's for a lighter weight championship. I can't remember, but I'll be doing that show on ESPN at 6 p.m. Pacific. May 19th on Showtime, we got Keith Thurman's fighting somebody. Gary Russell versus Joseph Diaz. That's the big one on that one. May 19th on Showtime. I'll be doing that one. Zoltan says, like he wants to prove he's the best KO artist. And he does. And that's part of his problem. RS says that's one of the biggest problems with wrestlers. They want to be good strikers, so they hold themselves. You've seen that with Khabib and Kevin Lee lately. They want to prove they're good strikers too. Absolutely. And, you know, Kevin Lee is a decent striker. He's a better striker than Khabib is, for sure. Please, someone let the dog out. 3 people here and a dog barking in the background. Sorry, guys. No. ESPN, May 26th, I want to go on though. ESPN Plus is going to have their first boxing card, 6:30 Eastern. Not exactly sure of the fighters yet, but they said it should be good. And I think the ESPN Plus is just the digital version of that $4.99 a month package that they're going to have. And if you have ESPN on cable or satellite or anything, you're going to get that. And let me talk about that ESPN package for just a second again. $4.99 a month, you're going to get all the on-demand. You're going to get live and on-demand. 15 live MMA events next year. They promised at least 12 fights per card. And then the on-demand, I think, might kind of morph with Fight Pass. So we might actually be able to save some money as fans if they group that together somehow. RS says Ego is getting a lot of fighters. I mean, Kevin Lee almost got KO'd by Barbosa because he was playing around with striking instead of going to the ground. Yeah, that was stupid to put himself in there like that, for sure. Iaquinta says Khabib is a good striker. Did he? I mean, he landed his jab some. I don't know. But I think he's got a lot of work to go. I think he was definitely over-criticized after that performance. And I think I mentioned at the time, something scary about that performance is I think it's going to be good for Khabib in the long run. Because he realized, hey, I have great wrestling, but I wasn't able to put this guy away. So what if he starts to put the same effort towards the striking game that he has, his grappling game and wrestling? You think he's a nightmare now. RS says, I think Conor has a chance of beating Khabib if he starts playing around and striking. I'm afraid Khabib, after dominating Conor on the ground for a few rounds, might try to stand up. And that's pretty much Conor's only chance, I think. Mike D says, yes, he did. But yeah, Fox Sports Boxing, also May 26th. We'll probably end up doing the ESPN one. They have announced all the fighters for that one. But May 27th, of course, Stephen Thompson versus Darren Till. You got that karate match. You also got Neil Magny in the co-main event looking for an opponent right now. It's still Neil Magny versus question mark. And we're just 19 days away. Sal Malvey can't jump in because I believe he's actually on that card. So, or no, he's on the June 1st card. He might fight 5 days he might fight 5 days apart. He's crazy. Connor's a fraud, says Mike D. I agree. Yeah, I'd be happy to see him never fight again. So I don't think Connor realizes, because he's around all these yes men, how many enemies he's made out there. I'm seriously to the point that I don't even want to see Connor booked a lot of times for a card, because I don't want to deal with the drama. I want to see a fight. You know, I want to see a fight. If I was Connor, I would pretend to be very weak on the floor and easy to take down, so Khabib's ego gets him to abandon, makes him stand up. Yeah, but Khabib will hold you for the whole round. That might work. Mike D says if he fights again, it'll be Mayweather again. $1 billion. Oh, jeez. RS says, no, it's not. Yeah, I really hope that he doesn't fight Floyd Mayweather again. That would be in my mind about one of the worst possible things that could happen. But Bellator is going to have to step their game up a little bit. They've been doing much better. Like I said, this last Bellator card, if you guys didn't watch it, the jiu-jitsu was crazy. I really enjoyed it. All submissions except for the Fedor versus Mir fight, which was absolutely incredible. All 48 seconds of it. Complete violence. Like I said, Bellator 199 is a great card. But let's move on to Bellator 200. And that's going to be on May 25th. That's before the end of the month. And let me break that down for you. The main event, the middleweight world championship, we got Rafael Carvalho, he's the middleweight champion, versus Gegard Mousasi in his Bellator debut. Then you got Marco Crocop versus Roy Nelson. We just talked about that. Obviously, got to really look forward to that fight. I imagine that's going to be an entertaining fight. People have been asking where he is. He hasn't fought in a while. He's one of the most entertaining guys in the entire fight combat game. Michael Page fighting the tough David Rickles at Bellator 200. Giant lineup for 200. And good idea, guys. Great idea. And that's not where it ends. You got Phil Davis versus Linton Vassell. And you got Aaron Chalmers versus Ash Griffiths. That's a catchweight feature bout. That's not as exciting. I was thinking it was somebody else. But Phil Davis versus Linton Vassell. That's a great fight. We haven't seen Phil Davis in a while. For whatever reason, there's not really, Daniel Crawford versus Pedro Carvalho. That's, a decent fight, but there's really not a lot of meat on the undercard, and that's kind of been how Bellator does. We don't recognize a lot of the names. I think that's kind of where I think they have their up-and-coming fighters, though, and the UFC used to do a lot of that, and I don't think it's a bad idea at all. Mike D says, I feel like Conor Alvarez fight was fixed. Had that gone a different way, then the Mayweather fight wouldn't have happened. I don't like to get into this speculation, and I'm not saying anything's fixed. I don't think it was. They've been accused of fixing a lot of Conor fights, and this goes back to, of course, the Jose Aldo fight. There was things that were said about that. But, a lot of his fights, funny things have happened. And I don't think they're rigging his fights. It would be stupid for the UFC. There's way too much to lose. But I'm trying to think of a guy's name. Excuse me, give me a second. And this is one I had a problem with. What I think a lot of times is they're quicker to step in. And possibly they tell those guys to step in quicker, like the referees and stuff. And that's almost a form of fight fixing in itself, though. I don't like that at all. So I hope that's not happening either. But, the referees, they got to be completely independent. Or maybe they just feel, they feel an obligation to make sure he wins. Chad Mendez, there was people that said, that it was kind of a weird fight. Chad Mendez obviously took, that could be the blueprint to beat Conor. He took Conor down at will. Dennis Seaver, though, when you watch that fight, the crowd goes crazy every time he throws punches, and he's not landing a lot of them. If you guys want to see a controversial fight, write it down right now. Look up Conor McGregor versus Dennis Seaver, at least a controversial stoppage. And I thought that was a very controversial stoppage. So you never know. RS says it was a scam. Everybody fell for it, but it's over now. Move along. When, if ever, do you think we see Wilder versus Joshua? I'm hoping we see it this year. It looks like if it's going to happen soon, it's going to be in the States, though. I know Anthony Joshua's people and his promoter came to Wilder and said, come to England, we'll have the fight, but we can only give you $12.5 million. They said this fight's going to make maybe $100 million in revenue. We both have to get paid, and there's a lot of expenses. And obviously, Deontay Wilder laughed him out of the water on that. Then Deontay Wilder's people recently approached Anthony Joshua and said, you bring it to the States, we'll give you $50 million, no questions asked. So that seems to be the bigger possibility for sure to me. Bellator, Tank Abbott versus Dada 5000. Boom, you're welcome, Bellator. Tank Abbott's like 50 years old, and apparently he's missing. I've been trying to get him on the show to interview him, actually. So he's one of my favorite fighters. And talking to Art Davey, it brought up a lot of memories. And I asked Art, I said, you have any idea where Tank Abbott is? He's like, oh, he's, probably on some bar stool in Huntington Beach, beating up some random stranger. The guy's a nut. But he would definitely be an entertaining interview. Crocops looks like he's on the good juice. Yeah, like I said, they don't have USADA over there. Khabib versus GSP, who wins? That would be a cool fight. Khabib cuts a lot of weight, getting to 155. So if they fought at 170, that one's so close, it's going to make a lot of difference what weight they fight at. I don't know how GSP would look at 155. Khabib walks around heavy enough that might not be that big a deal anyways. GSP's striking is superb compared to Khabib, though. And his wrestling, it's not as good. I'm going to say that. Khabib's wrestling is better than GSP. And that chain wrestling. Beowulf, what's up, man? Thank you for the $5 donation. Yes, I am going to do a fight companion for Tough tomorrow. I did that kind of impromptu last week, and it was pretty fun. It was actually a really good fight, too. The guy they call the Violent Bob Ross, Luis Pena, he won his fight. And it was an entertaining fight for sure. DFAB 53 says Crocop on the Ryzen 11 poster. And doesn't he have a fight booked with Bellator also? I didn't see that. I'm going to have to look into that. I'm not even sure. I need to look at when Ryzen 11 is. They just had Ryzen 10 Saturday night, which I said was incredibly, it was amazingly entertaining. I was very tired by the end of it, though. I've never streamed that long, 5, 6 in the morning. By the end of it, unfortunately, I was just ready to go to sleep. So I'll make sure definitely next time to kind of wake up right before the event. And hopefully there's no big event right before it. Ryzen 11, it looks like we got a Ryzen 11 July 29th. So that's a few months away on the Ryzen stream. So Mike D says Alvarez barely threw a punch. I'll leave it at that. Conor is a good fighter. His fights were real. He might have had his opponents handpicked, but a very different story. Yeah, no, I don't think the UFC was involved in fight fixing at all. Absolutely not. Here's an interesting fact from the Art Davie interview, though. If you guys haven't watched that, he was absolutely incredible. Creator and co-founder of the UFC. He talked to me about there actually was a fixed fight in the UFC at one time, and the deal is the promoter was promoting two different fighters, and he didn't say who the fighters were, but he said it was the only time, and the UFC didn't know about it. They had no way of knowing about it. Somehow they found out later. I'm not sure why that was. What's the update with Mighty Mouse or T Wood? I don't know. I don't know when T Wood's fighting. I had something here on Demetrius, I believe. And let me read it to get it right. Of course, Dana White says Demetrius Johnson versus TJ Dillashaw isn't happening. We knew that. We knew that. Apparently, he's been playing a lot of Fortnite. So that's what Demetrius Johnson is doing. He plays a lot of video games. Hopefully not too many. Hopefully he's got a good fight coming up. There's really nobody at 125 pounds right now to challenge him. Who do you guys want him to fight? Guys that aren't TJ Dillashaw, that aren't coming down to fight. Cejudo versus DJ. He already beat him. Henry Cejudo? He beat him not too long ago. I mean, they could have the rematch. He's rematched just about everybody at this point. MA still rehabbing his shoulder surgery, looking for a fight. Yep. T Wood had a heart attack when he heard the rumor about GSP versus Diaz. It's not a rumor, guys. Dana White came out and said, we're working on finalizing this contract. I don't think Dana White would have came out in the way he did to make a big public deal about it and actually call it the co-main event on UFC 227 if it was just a rumor. I really feel like there is a very small chance that that fight's going to fall through now. He doesn't want to put his reputation up there on rumors like that. T Wood thinks he deserves a money fight. Deserves it as much as anybody. Deserves it more than Nate Diaz. And like I said, I like the Diaz brothers. But T Wood's, he's top of the food chain. Cap with the sub advertising. Thanks, man. Yep, thank you. Yeah, everybody thank Cap. Thank you. Greatest moderator you could ask for. It's freaking awesome. RS says no one wants to fight. Zoltan says Cruz. Possibly. No one wants to fight T Wood. DJ must beat Cruz to be GOAT. So Dominic Cruz comes down to 125 pounds. See, that's part of the thing, and I actually was thinking about this a lot today, about Demetrius Johnson. I'm like, is Demetrius Johnson the top pound-for-pound fighter in the world? When I believe there's guys at 135 pounds that could probably beat him. For one thing, they have to make 125. And yeah, that's something, Cruz can't do it. If TJ can do it, that's going to be interesting. Against true 125ers, DJ's the top guy. Now, when you start talking about guys that are 135 pounds, or really 150, they dehydrate themselves down, and then they come in the night of the fight 25 pounds over. Is that the same thing as somebody that's worked their way up in the 125-pound division? And I don't know what is. I don't know if that's the same thing, honestly. Horiguchi will probably resign. Possibly. Dana White's word is what it's worth. When he comes out like that, a lot of times he's said things that this will absolutely not happen, and absolutely it happens in the past. I know that. But, he came out at a big venue and said, usually when he says a fight's going to happen, I haven't seen him say a fight's going to happen that he doesn't plan on making it happen in the entire time he's been with the UFC. Yeah, DJ got to go up, and I just don't think that's fair to DJ. He's a 125-pounder. He's a small dude. He's a 125-pounder, period. He doesn't even have to cut that much weight, like 7 pounds. Yes, DJ is the best. The guy's an enormous role. Nobody has had so many title defenses. If he beats TJ, it will leave no doubt. If he beats TJ, I mean, yeah, he's going to go down as this legendary icon and never loses before he retires. It's going to be insane. Isn't Sugar Shane flyweight? I don't know. Beating Cruz would be a redemption for his only loss and gives chance to fight for 2 titles, showing he can win versus bigger guys. You're right, Zoltan. And, that was one of the things I was thinking. It's like, is he the greatest pound for pound when there's a guy out there that he hasn't that beat him? But that's why the 125-pound division was made, is because, like I said, he's not a 135-pounder. He doesn't even walk around at 135 pounds. So the fact that he was fighting such bigger guys, it makes such a difference at that high of a level. The guys being that much bigger. Sometimes it can happen when you have an A-level guy and a B, borderline C-level guy, weights don't matter as much. When you got A versus A or A versus A plus or A minus, weight makes a huge difference. So, we couldn't do these old UFCs that they used to do back in the day with the no weight classes and things. Anderson Silva never fought GSP, and they both are considered the greatest. If VJ fights TJ, it's going to be huge. I wish they would have fought each other. That's why I found it really funny, GSP finally going up to 185 pounds. And that was the thing that blocked the fight between Anderson and GSP for so long. It was one of the main things was Anderson said that he, couldn't make 170, and I don't see how he can. It's 15 pounds off. He's 6'3". He cuts a decent amount of weight for 185er. He's fought at 205 several times and has no problem with it. So he could be a 205er, no problem. To go down to 170, it's just kind of ridiculous. If DJ fights TJ, it's going to be huge. I think this Corey Brandt versus TJ, Gambrandt versus TJ Dillashaw, I think that's a huge fight. You put that together with Nate Diaz versus GSP and, Luke Rockhold versus Alexander Gustafsson, and you got a crazy card. O'Malley is 135 bantam. O'Malley versus Cruz would be sick. I'd like to see more O'Malley. I don't know if he's quite on Cruz's level yet, but I really like that kid. And no one else can offer Cruz the money he wants. That's true. That fight's going to sell. O'Malley's got a great personality. He doesn't seem like he's faking it. He's very natural. He doesn't come off like a big jackass. CC. Mike D says, Prime Silva versus John Jones would have been sick. I think the weight advantage comes in there too, though. I think John Jones wins that. I mean, you never know. John Jones is definitely a more complete fighter. I don't think Silva could have stopped John Jones wrestling. On the feet, they're almost even. And I know that's hard to say, that anybody might be even with Silva, but John Jones is so creative and athletically gifted on his feet. Rockhold gets boxed up by Gus. I think so, but I think that Gus wins that fight, but I also think that Rockhold really had no other choice than to go up to 205. Especially if John Jones doesn't return to 205. There's a lot of guys there that he can beat, and I just don't think he was very good at 185 anymore. He's a big guy, very big guy. Prime beef wrapped in bacon strips. But it never happened, Mike D, and yet they consider both of them GOATs. Why not DJ too? Yeah, absolutely. Prime Silva versus John Jones, battle of the drug gurus. Yeah, they both tested positive how many times? And that's, the big argument for the Demetrius Johnson fans is, Demetrius Johnson never popped positive. And that's a big thing. It's a big thing in today's world, especially with USADA. RS, to be honest, I think Anderson Silva is a bit overrated. He didn't face very good competition and had very nail biters. Wasn't so dominant. He was definitely dominant at times. I think he was kind of like a Michael Venom Page, and I'm gonna say he's definitely better than a Michael Venom Page, but I think his creativity captivated us. The way he held his hands down, the way he would throw jumping kicks and punches from across the cage. And you're right, I'm not sure he was quite as good as we thought he was. But when he came into the UFC, and Rich Franklin was thought to be almost, undefeatable. That guy was running through everybody. And Anderson Silva came in and just absolutely destroyed him. He got him in a tie clinch and just kneed the shit out of him in the first round. I mean, done deal. I love clean fighters too, Cab. That's one of the reasons I like Stipe and Demetrius Johnson. And I think that's going to be such a big deal. I hope they do it right. But with ESPN and especially Disney being able to promote guys, especially like Daniel Cormier, Stipe Miocic, and Demetrius Johnson. Those guys are legitimate stars, especially DC and Demetrius Johnson. They're super charismatic on the camera. Why they don't market, why they don't market DJ more just blows my mind. I mean, he's a game player. That's what these kids are doing. The average UFC fan, the age is astronomical. I mean, I'm like in the mid-range at 39 years old. They almost had to do this. They had to go somewhere where they could try to get some younger fans, or there was going to be a lot of issues. Vitor Belfort, that was the Vitor TRT Belfort. That was a big win. But yeah, some of the guys, you got the 2 wins against Rich Franklin. You got Dan Henderson. I'm talking about Anderson Silva there. And, you got some good wins there. There wasn't as good a competition. You got to remember when he was fighting, when he first came into the UFC, the UFC is a level below where it is right now. And that was part of it. He did things that a lot of guys really hadn't seen. One of the big things was no one had ever seen a tie clinch like that at that level. So that really took a lot of people by surprise. That's how he dominated Chris Liebman within a couple seconds. Everybody was so amazed. He got an immediate title shot. Did the same thing to Rich Franklin. At the time, Anderson was like God status Neo in the Matrix. Oh, absolutely. To say that the guy is not skilled and had incredible reflexes is insane. Comedic genius, I'm out. Take it sleazy. All right, have a good one, Comedic. Pete says, GSP or DJ for the GOAT? That's another tough one. There's never been any reason to believe that GSP was dirty. Supposedly he even left the sport. Because he was upset that they weren't testing, and he thought that he was fighting a lot of guys that were dirty. I don't know that he really named Johnny Hendricks, but you watch post USADA, Johnny Hendricks he's really been a shell of his former self, and that's an understatement. I mean, the guy's really done nothing since USADA. DFAB says GSP based on level of competition. I'm going to agree with you, DFAB53. It's not Demetrius Johnson's fault that he hasn't had the competition. and he's made them look bad. Don't get me wrong. Also, DJ, he needs a couple more years, I think, to get to GSP status. Cap says, I think Disney will push the good guys like DJ, Stipe, DC, and Rose. That's what I'm hoping. Robert Whittaker also quite. I love Robert Whittaker. There's so much going on, and we forget that we have this huge match coming up at UFC 225. Robert Whittaker versus Yoel Romero. That's got to be one of the biggest fights of the year. RS says the Celchonen and Damian Maia fights made Anderson Silva look bad. Yeah, they did. Damian Maia didn't really have him in trouble, but Damian Maia just makes everybody look bad. And then Chael Sonnen out-wrestled the shit out of him. It was a good thing that Anderson Silva was able to come back and dominate the second time. But yeah, that's one of the reasons I thought John Jones would have really, beaten Silva. That it may not have even been super competitive, but I would have taken John Jones by quite a bit over Anderson Silva. Does that mean that Anderson Silva can't be in the conversation for the GOAT? I'd say absolutely not, because you got a 20-pound weight difference, and you also got a guy in John Jones that really should be a heavyweight. He walks around at 240 pounds, and the guy's huge. John Jones, GSP, DJ, all were way more dominant than Spider Silva. Anderson Silva, don't forget though, had the record for the longest streak of defending the title. He defended the title for like 5 years without losing. I mean, it was pretty impressive. I think Jose Aldo had a better career than Anderson Silva, says RS. Jose is one of those guys that we just forget about too. Possible future GOAT, Whittaker is only 26. If it hadn't been for his last fights, Jose would be in this conversation. RS says they're going to unleash the jungle cat on Whittaker. Yeah, that's going to be an absolute phenomenal fight. And Chael, you were mentioning Disney pushing the good guys, DJ, Stipe, DC, and you said Rose there at the end. And I wanted to talk just about a story that I'd read earlier today. It was an article from Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and of course she's fighting Tecia Torres. And she says if she beats Tecia Torres, she deserves an immediate rematch at the championship, and that she will be champion by the end of 2018. Does she deserve it? Possibly. Maybe she needs another fight. But I think maybe kind of Rose has her number too. When you have somebody that's lost twice to the same person, back to back like that, I don't see him putting on a third fight right away. It's not unheard of. JJ is a bit of a sore loser. She definitely was. She definitely was, and I think that's part of her edge. Some people are just, they're like that. They have a hard time dealing with losses, but I don't think she's a sore loser in the way that Ronda was. Ronda just kind of mentally broke. She just kind of broke away from reality almost. And I mean, I'm glad. Seems like she's mentally healthy and doing good in the WWE. Because, I do like her. I started watching her, following her because of judo. And I wish the best for her. I don't wish, ill will on really any of these fighters. They have one of the hardest jobs, if not the hardest job in the world. Hardest job maybe outside police officer and firefighter. And Stipe Miocic somehow does both. Cap says, I think Rose will lose to Jessica Andrade or Carolina or Claudia Gadelha. If I was Joanna, I would just beat Tecia Torres, then wait. I was thinking about that too, Cap, and that's the thing. I love Rose Namajunas. I think she's great. I don't think she's a better fighter than Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I think it's a bad style matchup. Like I've said before, when you had was Sugar Shane Mosley versus Vernon Forrest. the Viper, Vernon Forrest. Sugar Shane Mosley was top pound-for-pound fighter in the world at the time. Fought Vernon Forrest. Vernon Forrest immediately goes up the ranks, wins a world championship. Then they rematch immediately. He beats Sugar Shane Mosley again. He's just in the wrong spot every time for Sugar Shane Mosley's style. Everywhere Sugar Shane Mosley shows up, Vernon Forrest's fist is already there. It was just a huge mismatch in styles. Sugar Shane Mosley, after that fight, went on to become one of the greatest of all time. Vernon Forrest didn't really win a whole lot of fights, and he didn't beat anybody that was top level. So, and I think Rose is very good. I don't think she's a Vernon Forrest, but I don't think she's better than Joanna. I just think it's a style thing. RS says, Ronda just took everything to an all-new level. Bitch be crazy, but I can't wait for her comeback. Carolina is looking good. Ronda comeback. She's going to be in the UFC, WWE. She's not coming back to the UFC, though. Ronda will never come back. Game has passed her by. She dominated early women's MMA, but I don't think she can compete with the top women now. That's what I think, absolutely. RS says, I hope Khabib versus Ortega happens soon. Me too. Khabib says that he's in negotiations with Conor, but he said that he won't continue to drag him on. I mean, if he doesn't have anybody to fight, I believe it was November, then he was just going to fight Ortega and push Conor to the side. And Ortega deserves the shot much more than Conor right now. Conor gave up the damn belts, for God's sakes. That's some style matchup. Absolutely. Ortega could definitely take Khabib out. Ortega probably takes both of them out, honestly. I think he has a good chance of beating Khabib, and I think he probably beats Conor as well. I underestimated him against Frankie Edgar, and I was so impressed with him. Then I went back and watched some more of his older fights, and I started realizing how good Brian Ortega is. I was like, is that a fluke? Did he just hit Frankie on the chin in the wrong place? And I thought maybe Frankie was done. Maybe he got older overnight, and then he came back and had that tremendous win against Cub Swanson. Cap says, Dana said the plan is for Eddie versus Poirier, which leaves Kevin Lee. I did hear he say he wants that fight. Eddie versus Poirier. I didn't think Poirier. I think that's a good decision. I didn't think Dustin Poirier quite earned a title shot with the win against Justin Gaethje. Good fight. I thought he needed one more. Greg says Khabib versus Conor. We all want to see it. I mean, I want to see it, but I don't want the drama of having the fight canceled and just this back and forth with, oh, what's Conor doing now? Is he going to show up at the press conferences? And this whole 24 hours of hearing about Conor McGregor. I just don't want to do it again. Let's see if Holloway can hang with the submission master. I think Holloway comes up eventually. He was very big. He couldn't even make the 155 when he was offered that fight against Khabib. He probably would have made it eventually if they weren't in New York. But he was on, I think it was MMA Junkie he was on. I can't remember for sure. But they asked him how heavy he was when they called him, and he just said heavy. And they said, were you bigger than this? Were you bigger than this? He's like, I'm not going to say. I'm just saying I was heavy. So, RS says, Conor was going to fight Khabib in Russia, but he lost his passport. Yeah, good luck getting into Russia now. Fight in New York so I can go, says Greg. Yeah. Oh, are you in New York, Greg? I really don't think Conor McGregor's fighting in New York anytime soon. Actually, one of the top commissioners in New York said Conor McGregor absolutely will not fucking fight in New York. So we'll see. MMA fighters are just cutting too much weight. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that brings me to one thing. I got a text from Mr. Ian Brewster today. As you know, he's one of my best sources. He's always got his nose to the ground. Former CEO of W1 MMA. He gave me contact information for the CEO of One Championship, Victor Cui. I'm going to have to figure out how to pronounce that. Victor Koo, I'm not sure, but he's the CEO of CEO International at One Championship, and I'm going to try to get him on the show. I think he'll be an interesting interview. Talk to him about the way they do the weight cuts, and they also are doing their own kind of reality show right now. I think it's going to be like a Dana White. It's not like a Dana White Tuesday Night Contender kind of thing. So fighters should learn from Gastelum and Whitaker and move up. Yeah, Gastelum. I don't know if Gastelum doesn't look that big. I've always kind of wondered if Gastelum was more a discipline thing than anything else. And I won't judge these guys on discipline. Some people just have discipline. They can eat broccoli and chicken for every single meal and never crave pizza, never crave cheeseburgers. I'm not that person. I'm very impulsive when it comes to eating. I'm trying to start eating healthy now. I got to pack the stuff. I got to have the bad foods away, because if there's a bag of potato chips in front of me, I'm going to want to fucking eat it. Derek Lewis talked about being that way. And fighters are very impulsive in nature anyways. That's why they're fucking fighters. To want to punch people in the face for a living, you're going to get a lot of impulsive people. And I think Kelvin Gastelum probably doesn't have, he probably doesn't take care of his body the same way a Demetrius Johnson or Michael Chandler does. I'm not saying he doesn't take care of his body. I just don't think he eats perfect when it comes down to that weight cut part. I don't think he does it 100% the way he should have. You've seen how Dana shitted on Ariel again for making shit up and twisting words around to make this the short sounds better, or story sound better. Yeah, I did see that. I think he was upset that Ariel Helwani was trying to break the Nate Diaz versus George St. Pierre story before he could. RS says, money speaks louder than anything. If New York can make money with Conor, they will. I don't know. New York was not happy about a lot of things this last time, their commission. And think about how long it took for the UFC to even get into New York. They didn't want them there. They still didn't. A lot of people still don't want them there. Disgusting, says Greg. I can refrain from eating anything. I have no reason to do so, though. Yeah, I hear you. Well, if you put enough money in front of me, I think I probably could. But I still have to, measure my stuff out. I'll make like a beef and broccoli the night before if that's what I want to eat. RS says, Chelstone says Gastelum is the most talented fighter he ever seen. That's quite the compliment. Has he ever seen CM Punk? You guys are going to be amazed by the great CM Punk at UFC 225. It's going to be like the coronation of the new pound-for-pound great in the world of MMA. No, not really. But I think he actually does probably beat that Mike Jackson guy. And the deal with the Mike Jackson guy, I had him on the show. I think I've told you this guy before. I'm talking to him. I said, what would you say to these people that say you're only fighting CM Punk for the notoriety? And he said, of course, I'm a businessman. And he cut a big promo for it. So I think Mike Jackson's trying to set up a career in the WWE, and then maybe they change places. You got CM Punk in MMA, and you got Mike Jackson in the WWE. So I don't know. Has he ever seen CM Punk? Yeah. RS, where did they get this opponent? I have read he is a cameraman. So Mike Jackson, this opponent, he's been in MMA since 2009, back and forth. And I heard he's knocked some guys out in practice, because I know some of the guys that he practices, and he's actually Pete Spratt. If you see my interview with Pete Spratt on here, former UFC great, he was on the UFC 4 Ultimate Fighter 4, the Comeback series. He's been training with Mike Jackson. He sent me some pictures and some video, actually, and that's actually his cousin. So I was talking shit about him a little bit, which I try not to do, especially somebody that I interviewed. But I really didn't know what to say about it. I was trying to be honest. And yeah, he's 0-1 as an amateur, and he's 0-1 as a pro. And his amateur fight was in 2009. He came back and fought pro like a year ago or something. So I mean, he's gonna get paid. Mike Perry is with Jackson and Wink now. I seen that. That is a great move. Good move for him. I like Mike Perry. I think he's a good person for the most part. He had a tough upbringing, and I think he's trying to get out of it. Meta World Peace versus Ben Wallace. UFC set it up. Oh my. DFAB 53 at Cap, good move, but Jackson Wink isn't the powerhouse it once was. It's pretty damn good. 7. He was the one that fought Mickey Gall for the chance to face CM Punk, and he lost, and now he's getting the shot. Yeah, his one loss in MMA, Mike Jackson's, was against Mickey Gall, same as CM Punk. So obvious. I mean, let's not be stupid here. They want CM Punk to win. He's on the main card. He's not even on the prelims. He's not in the main event. I think he's a fourth fight down, but he's on the main freaking card of a damn pay-per-view. And he's 0-1. Both these guys are 0-1. So, I mean, it's a sideshow. Let's just take it for what it is. I respect CM Punk that he could have kept making money in wrestling and he wanted to try something else. I think it was his dream. Perry wants to learn how to dope. Oh, jeez. Good. Yep, DFAB, but it's definitely an upgrade. Definitely. CM Punk, money, CM Punk. Yep. 7 says he better on that main card if that shit is in Chicago. It is in Chicago. So who's the best MMA coach? That's hard to say because there's so many specialists. There's so many striking coaches. Like when you go to Gray Jackson's very good. Jackson Michael is obviously very good. When you go to striking, like a guy like Rick Rufus, absolutely insane. And then you got that guy, the master of the leg locks. He's actually GSP's coach, or has been his coach. I can't think of his name. Matt Hume. Yeah, Matt Hume's great. CM Punk should have stuck to roasting John Cena. But 7 just named the guy that trumps them all. Edmund Tarvidon. We all must have forgot about him. Greatest coach of all time. No. I thought it was funny. He was coaching Triple G's opponent. I was like, are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. But the guy that was in there, I can't remember the name of the guy, but for those of you that didn't watch the Triple G fight, his opponent actually told his wife not to come to the fight because he was worried that he might not come home. She didn't want him to see the fight, or she didn't want her to see the fight. So he was not very confident going in there. Yes, absolutely. Head movement. I was just waiting to hear it watching the fight. And he did hit Triple G with a good shot in that first round. I mean, it wasn't anything that really, like a knockdown was going to hurt him, but it's definitely a solid shot. And then in that second round, Triple G just came in there and took care of business and took him out. That being said, I can't even think of the guy's name, opponent against Triple G, but that when he was knocked down, I thought he definitely could have gotten up. He had plenty of time to get up. He was looking at the referee. He seemed coherent. Looked like he probably could have gotten up with a 3 or 4 count. Decided to stay down. Beowulf, Richard Perez versus Jason Priol. Mr. Edmund. Yep.
Okay.
What do you guys think about Stephen Thompson versus Darren Till? I know they're both top-level guys, but they're also, they're also counter-strikers. So I think a lot of people could be very disappointed in that fight. The more I've been thinking about that, the more I kind of compare it back to boxing to kind of like a Roy Jones versus Antonio Tarver, which I enjoyed. But there was a lot of downtime, definitely a lot of posturing, a lot of filling out, and I think that's how Stephen Thompson versus Darren Till is going to come down. There might be an explosion there towards the end, but you've seen Lyoto Machida kind of dance around for 3/4 of a fight, and then he does something amazing. Darren Till has better hands and more wrestling, his striking, more leg kicks. Stephen Thompson is an enigma, though. That guy is very, very hard to figure out. I'm excited about the fight. I think it's going to be very competitive. I kind of tend to favor Stephen Thompson a little bit just because he's so hard to figure out. Hopefully, Darren Till is able to figure it out. Darren Till all day, says Bruce. What's up? Everybody say hi to Bruce that wasn't in here earlier. Bruce, the felony killer. Wonder Boy will win, says Cab. So we got a split room. I don't want to put you on the spot here, Bruce, but and I know you're a busy man, but I'd meant to ask you, how would you like to do a fight companion with me one of these days? I'd like to pick your brain. If we could get Bruce on a fight companion, talking with me and breaking down the fights and calling them as they're happening, I think that'd be a lot of fun. RS says, I'm going to give you a bold prediction. Darren Till will destroy Wonder Boy's legs. That is going to be something he definitely has to deal with. Thompson via kick to the head. Ever thought about doing a podcast? You've had guest fighters on, and that's more than most YouTubers. I've had a lot of guests on now. And I really need to set up the podcast thing. I need to put up the time, and I know that the audience is so much bigger. Yeah, maybe one day. That would be awesome. But yeah, I definitely need to go to an audio format as well as the YouTube. I don't want to get rid of the YouTube ever, but do a podcast with Tony Bennett. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he likes me very much, and to be quite frank, I'm not the biggest fan of him either. Is that the real Bruce Lee that fought Felony? Oh, the real Bruce that fought Felony. That is the real Bruce that fought Felony, yes. He also has his own YouTube channel. He's being quiet in here. But check out his YouTube channel, subscribe, give him some views, give him some love. One of my favorite stories in MMA, and I just love how you keep posting, Bruce. I just love all the pictures on Instagram and Facebook of the fight. It's amazing. But yeah, no, I started thinking I need to do a podcast format when I started realizing that I never watched Joe Rogan on YouTube. I listen to almost every podcast. I used to listen to just about everyone. And then he had some guys that I wasn't so excited about, or guys that have been on there 4 or 5 times and I've already heard them. But I realized I never watched the YouTube, but while I'm while I'm driving, I'm constantly listening. I only have about a 30-minute commute. There's a lot of people that have hours of commute. So that's definitely something I need to get set up. I need a tech guy. I'll figure it out, though. RS says, man, you're doing great. I hope you make it to the UFC. We have a legend on this chat now. Yeah, you definitely have a lot of fans here, Bruce, after that interview on here. I think a lot of people, were touched by your story and connected to you. So
I'm right here.
He's a very humble guy. I know he doesn't like the attention, really. Greg says, I've been here. But I think I'm going to eat some dinner. I think I'm going to wrap that up for now. You know, we had a pretty good turnout, though. I think I am definitely going to look at changing the time on MMA Live at 5. And that's one question before I go. Oh, yeah, tell us when your next fight is, Bruce. I'll let him go. Yeah, see, everybody loves Bruce. I'm thinking I'm going to change the MMA Live on Thursdays to 7 p.m. to give people time to get home from work and not be in such a rush like I am sometimes putting together the 5 o'clock show after work. So RS says the time is fine with him. I think he is gone. Yeah, he's a busy dude. That guy works like 4 jobs. He owns a gym that he trains at, and he's training 7 days a week because I follow him on Facebook, and or we're friends on Facebook, and he's constantly putting up his training sessions for the day, inviting people down. I swear, I think he works like 2 or 3 jobs, and runs his dojo like every single day. Peace, guys. Follow me at Bruce Iron Lion. I'm doing a pro boxing match June 29th. All right, June 29th. All right, Bruce out. Thank you again so much for coming in, Bruce. I'm from Canada. It was nice talking to you. Yeah, thanks for coming in, Peter from Canada. If you're in Canada, look up Kyle the Monster Nelson. We're pushing to get him into the UFC right now. He's right on the cusp. If you're an MMA fan, I'm sure you know who he is. He's #1 featherweight in Canada. He's one of my good friends. Super humble guy. You know, one of these super disciplined guys, like we were talking about people being disciplined. Super great disciplined guy. But real quick, I want to get your guys' thoughts on changing the MMA live time to 7 p.m. Does that hurt anyone? Because I think it is going to help some people. I'm out. All right. Have a good night, RS. Thanks, man. Thanks as always. I appreciate it. So 2 hours later for the Thursday show. Peter Goucher says thumbs up. DFAB says works for me. I think it's going to work better for people. It's usually at 5 p.m. Pacific on Thursday. So I was kind of trying to do this thing. It's called MMA Live at 5, and it sounds catchy. Yeah, 7 p.m. West Coast. MMA at 7, you know, 7 likes that. Hey, there we go. 7. Perfect. We know 7 never sleeps. He was up with me for streaming for 9 hours during that Ryzen show after the boxing. So anyway, Beowulf, thank you for the donation, by the way. Everybody thank Beowulf for the $5 donation. I appreciate it. I don't get a lot of donations, but I definitely appreciate it when I do, so it definitely helps. Thank you very much. So I said I'm going to wrap it up. It looks like we're probably going to move MMA Live to 7 p.m. I think let's go ahead and start that this week. I'm going to go ahead and start it this Thursday, 2 days from now. Oh, don't forget tomorrow, Wednesday, if you guys want to tune in for the Tough Companion. Ultimate Fighter starts at 8 p.m. And we'll do a Tough Companion. Everybody that wants to come in at 8 p.m., we'll talk about what's going on there, and I'm sure we'll also, you know, talk some other MMA, boxing, and whatever you guys want to talk about. So I'm going to let everybody go and eat. I have not eaten dinner. So, as always, I love you, I respect you, and I'll see your fine asses later.